Imagine you are living in a vibrant and thriving city, full of colourful and uniquely designed buildings that light up the sky. Everything seems to resemble a paradise until one morning when you wake up and look out of the window, you see nothing but pale, withering houses, abandoned by their residents and left to erode into dust. For the quarter of all marine species that depend on coral reefs for habitat and shelter, this is an all too familiar nightmare. In this video, join me on a journey as we unravel the biology behind coral bleaching and discover the unique ways in which scientists are helping coral to overcome this threat. But hang on a second, what exactly is coral bleaching? Well, to understand that, we first have to grab a magnifying glass and take a closer look. Firstly, what you might view as one large animal is actually an assemblage of thousands of individual coral polyps that come together to form a colony. Now, if we zoomed in even further, we would notice that inside the cells of these polyps, there are algae cells. This is a form of endosymbiosis. Endo meaning within, and symbiosis you can think of as a partnership between two organisms. But if you had a stranger living in your house, you would expect them to pay rent, right? Well, in this case, the algae are paying rent by supplying the coral with sugar and other products derived from photosynthesis. In turn, the algae get access to a stable and protected environment, along with some nutrients on the side. However, when faced with a stress such as increased water temperature, the corals spit out the algae. The algae are what give corals their vibrant color, and so what is left is a ghostly skeleton that will eventually starve to death. Now that we understand what coral bleaching is, just how bad of an issue is it? Well, I hope you're sitting down, because it's probably worse than you thought. Recently, scientists have conducted a global study on how bleaching has affected 100 coral reefs. By combining their own observations with historical records, they were able to assess annual patterns in bleaching from 1980 to 2016. They found the time between successive bleaching events on a reef to have decreased from once every 27 years to once every 6 years. A third of the reefs experienced 4 or more severe bleaching events in the duration of their study, which occur when over 30% of the corals on the reef are affected. It is studies like these that support predictions that 90% of our coral reefs will be lost by 2050. So are corals really just sitting ducks destined to disappear in the future? Well, there are some rays of hope. Some corals naturally thrive in warm water. For example, the brain coral happens to have a population living in the young Persian Gulf Sea, where water temperatures can reach 36 degrees in summer. Scientists bred coral from this population with another population of the same species from the cooler waters of the Indian Ocean. The offspring they produced proved to be resistant to elevated water temperatures, and heat survival was enhanced by 37%. This is an example of assisted evolution, one strategy we could take to help corals persist in a warming climate. In this scenario, populations in hotter waters are carrying versions of genes more adapted to heat survival. The researchers found that the more resistant corals possessed heat shock genes, which carry out important functions like helping proteins maintain their shape and structure in hotter conditions. Now that we have identified which genes are important for corals to survive in warmer waters, a bit of creativity might be required in the next steps towards coral preservation. Synthetic biology is a field of science that essentially combines engineering with biology. Scientists from this field may have the power to build genetically enhanced corals, or algae, that will provide higher temperature tolerance. Taking a detour across the tree of life, scientists have already taken a heat shock gene, such as those found in the brain corals, and put it into a bacterium. In doing so, the bacteria were able to grow in temperatures 10% higher than they previously thought maximum. Do you think it would be possible to put these heat shock genes into coral, or its resident algae? Or are there any ethical issues that would stop you from doing this? Feel free to share your thoughts down below. I hope you have learned something interesting in this video and feel inspired to think of innovative ways that we might be able to help preserve these underwater havens just a little while longer.